welcome. This is a follow-up interview, second interview for the channel. And what you're hearing now is a frequency created by our interviewed guest this evening. His name's Justin from Dreamlapse Dimensions on YouTube. He also can be found on Spotify, Apple Music, and in this interview today, we're going to kind of break down a lot of details, like where he's coming from, where this passion project exists. There's a lot to uncover here, and obviously with these interviews, I guess the intention is to draw out where any individual's real inspiration is coming from and what they might be able to give us beyond the initial phase. So again, I'd like to introduce you to Justin from Dreamlapse Dimensions YouTube channel, as well as Lapse, which is a metal band, which is essentially another project as a musician that he's been working on for quite some time. And I simply wanted to bring him and invite him in to, I guess, clarify, this has always been interesting to me, behind the scenes, what it takes to really put out a project that he's working on currently, and where like some of those perspectives and motivations come from. So I hope you enjoy the interview. About an hour worth of content. I'll also be breaking these down into smaller sections for those interested, and we'll just invite Justin in. But thank you so much for joining us this evening, morning, afternoon, wherever it is that you find this. And I hope that you like, comment, subscribe, and find some value in this going forward. As we talked to Tara before, the botanist from California, we went into all kinds of different things with Tarot and the Age of Aquarius and so on and so forth. Today I want to kind of stay in the same vein with him on Tarot readings and so forth, but also like where all this is coming from and what the ultimate perspective is. So Justin, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And to get started, essentially we went over a couple questions already, so I know you're fairly well prepared on a lot of this, but we are just kind of shooting from the hip more or less and just going to kind of spin off where we need to. So
yeah, absolutely.
To get started, Justin, what do you actually believe your spiritual gifts to be today? Like that essentially might give you this fortitude, like to even build out this project that you've begun.
Got you. All right, so I've always had a God-given knack for understanding music. I was always eager to create aesthetically pleasing art. It wasn't until less than a year ago that I discovered my passion for healing others and assisting others in their spiritual pursuit through the use of specific frequencies and the science of brainwave entrainment, while touching on concepts for those who seek soul progression and self-awareness, but also doing it in a way that's against the norm of how new wave music tends to sound. I believe that these have more of a uniqueness about them and are closer to EDM music than, like new age music that I'm used to. I've always been the type to heal and encourage the ones close to me to align with their highest self and to discover their infinite potential through the recognition of passion in their endeavors, or to show my family that breaking generational curses is possible.
Okay.
I also have like witchy elements to my reality that I've only begun to discover within the last few years. Like for instance, I have a cat with uncanny personality traits as myself, and I tend to pull eerily spot-on tarot readings. So.
Yeah, you mentioned that before. So as far as like tarot is concerned, how long have you been reading?
Yeah, it's funny that we're going to pronounce that differently. Just
yeah.
let you know that right now.
That's
probably
okay.
Chakras too.
How do you pronounce it then? You go tarot? Yeah.
I say tarot. I believe that's the correct one. I don't think chakras is correct. I think it's chakras. But I won't say it.
That's okay. Everybody in the South says things different than people in the North. So, all in all, tomato, tomato, potato, potato.
Yeah, I'm just playing.
It's all good. It's funny. So yeah, when was your first like get interested in reading tarot? And like, what was your first deck?
Okay. So my first deck was the Rider-Waite, just
Okay.
the normal, because I wanted something that was normal to learn how to read on. Um, and it's got like the great imagery in those cards. But I discovered tarot because as I'm also like a metal musician, and I was friends with a guy named Kevin Ghost from a band called Ghost Town, which was signed by Fueled by Ramen, which is the same label as like Fall Out Boy, Paramore.
Okay.
And I was at his place one day, and he had a deck, and I was just like super fascinated by it. I don't know what he didn't even read for me, but I just like had this fixation on this deck. Like, this is something I want to be able to do. And before that, I was like studying palm reading and things like that. And I quickly forgot all the knowledge of palm reading and just went straight into tarot. And I've been doing that pretty consistently for a while now. And I have this really cool old school, here, I'll show you, like old school tarot looking deck.
Nice. That's beautiful. I love that
Really,
case.
it's the last one was on the bottom magically, last frequency I made.
Yeah,
But yeah, these are like some like older looking cards. So
that's beautiful. Yeah, I like different kinds of decks myself, but as my friend Tara told me, I've been breaking the rule by buying a lot of my own. But it's more educational for me. It's very new to me, with tarot readings. So it's more like been journal activity. So, and I wouldn't write down what I was interpreting the cards as so much as just documenting the position and what cards were coming out. And then like the date. So like, for example, one of my first readings was the Fool reversed, like very first card I ever drew from the deck after a really good shuffle. And then like it was my second or third and fourth, like there were 2 weeks in between. And there was just a 3 card, right? Maybe a past, present, future. I didn't know. I was just kind of like shooting from the hip, going with what there was. And ironically, the first card and the second card were exactly the same position. And the only thing that had changed in 2 weeks was the middle card. And I'm like, so like when I was able to look back on certain things like that for a lot of the last year, because I think I started somewhere around June or July, and I carried it all the way through the end of the year. So I do have a working knowledge of kind of what had taken place and where the cards were coming from, and it was just for myself, right? And this was also out of the, what's the name of my deck? The Light Seers deck. And it in and of itself, yeah, that's okay. But, to me, it just stood out to me, and I just went with it, and now that's my deck. I keep a crystal in a little package, like inside of its sack, and I kind of like, there's a relationship between the crystal and the deck kind of thing.
Okay, I used to do that. I have a ton of crystals because of my lady. She's obsessed with them. But I have this, I don't even know what it's called. It's got like these sunbeams inside this clear crystal. It's like gold beams inside of it. I don't even know what it's called, but it's meant for manifestation. I used to put it on top of this deck right here.
Yeah, so like I'm focusing a lot on root frequencies right now on my channel, for instance, and I understand chakras way more than almost anything else, but that's also only a personal endeavor, which I've had to understand the hard way. There's a lot of people interested in things like that, but the crystal, this is one I picked up yesterday at this Rock and Gem show that was local.
Oh wow.
And it's just absolutely beautiful. I could not walk away from it. And I was actually interested in a different piece at first, and then this one just caught my eye and I couldn't walk away. So between this and then there's a carnelian egg right here. It's just beautiful. So I've been trying to focus a lot of my energy on root chakra frequencies, a lot of red, a lot of different things.
Is that what those crystals, so like red crystals, those are the ones that connect to the root chakra the most?
They don't necessarily have to be red, but yeah, there are certain significance to, certain crystals resonating more clearly, more definitely with specific chakras.
Okay, I got you.
Depending on the geology, the force, like my actual best rooting crystal is, I just prefer a really small piece. but this is just a little small smoky quartz, for example. So it's just something small enough to keep in my pocket, and it's not even necessarily to walk through, but something like this, you know, you'll be walking through the store, or you'll be wearing certain types of fabrics, and all of a sudden electricity starts shooting out of the end of your fingers, everything you touch. That's, you know, that's what these grounding crystals are for. It's like equivalent to touching earth, like fully, and it can honestly like fully diffuse. So if you just keep one in your pocket and kind of just grab it on occasion, you can let all that let's say electricity that the human body tends to create.
Yeah.
And there's a lot for me to learn here on the crystals, but as far as like tarot and, you know, crystals, planets, astrology, I don't know what your depth of knowledge is, or if you're just more of an intuitive type of reader, but sorry for the little tangent. I just had to show you a little bit of my new crystals.
I'm pretty sure that's like very similar to the crystal I was talking about. It's up there, I think. Yeah, I got a bunch up there. You can't see them.
It's all right. I got so many yesterday actually, that my whole desk over here to my right is like completely filled. But to get back a little bit on track, obviously with the tarot, like how did you find your spiritual gift, I guess, and like where are you practicing it today?
All right, so for Dreamlapse, my fiance and I, we would sleep every night to like sleep tube on YouTube or different rain and wind chimes, because we were trying to like manifest where we're gonna move to in Florida. And so I was like, I can make these, and I could have a passion for making these. And so I started doing that, and then like just having like ideas for the first video we ever released was a money meditation. That's because I heard a money meditation, and I was like, I think I could make one that sounds and has a like a more authentic way to manifest than this. You know, no offense to, I won't mention what that one was or anything, but so that was like the first one we made, and she narrated it, and it was beautiful. But like I wanted to make sleep videos and rain videos and things like that, and then I was like, the concept evolved, and it became like I was open to just different concepts, and I was like, wow, like I really want to explore what I can do, like by making, you know, one of a kind frequencies of Earth, Sun, and Moon frequencies all in one, or like the Moon frequencies I make for different phases, to like explore helping people with their spell work or manifestation or healing their body, like all these kinds of concepts I had, and I'm still working on them and still coming up with new stuff that I think sounds fun, or trying to make something cohesive and continue to do that consistently, which is a task in itself. So that was pretty much how I discovered this spiritual gift. Music I've been doing for ever, but yeah.
And with your music, are you more like you're a writer? Do you prefer to play? Or are you just always been kind of the creator that sings and plays? Like as far as working in a band, how far does this experience go for you?
Yeah, I used to play in bands when I was younger. First band I was in, I was guitarist. Second band, I still hang out with the singer from that band. He lives out here now. We were in Chicago at the time.
Okay.
But so then I quickly, just like I said about, this is how my mind works though. If I hear something and I'm like, I could do a better job than that when it comes to, or like I believe that I might have a gift for this.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna try it. And so I became a vocalist for bands for a few years, and then eventually I took a break from music for a while. I didn't know if it was exactly what I wanted to do. It just seemed like adults eventually stop making music for the most part. Like if they want to grow up, they're like, oh God, that band thing was a phase. But somewhere along the line, I was just like, there's no way I'm going to be able to quit this, and I would never let anybody else that I was close to quit on their dream and passion. And even if I have to redefine what success is, I'm going to continue to do it. And so I learned how to produce music. I learned how to do different things that don't really necessarily require different members of a band, and I became the entire band. And
Yeah.
now that's how like a lot of the music I make for Lapse, uh, which is Dreamlapse's metal project,
Right.
is it's very technical. It's a lot harder for me to create that than like to be in a flow state and create Dreamlapse. Those kinds of things are like I have to really hone in on every part of every instrument and the vocals and screaming and different elements that I just am infatuated with musically. And so yeah, that's what I do now. I don't do it as much because the Dreamlapse has taken over, but yeah, that's where I am with that.
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, like, and that's a perfect segue into like kind of the second where we're gonna go into more of the Dreamlapse dimension, like your goal with the
Yeah.
channel and like this relationship between the two, I suppose, like the metal and then what you'll be doing with that. But so what I'm gathering for yourself, Justin, is perhaps like this spiritual gift just kind of came innately, fairly young. You've been able to endeavor that through early bands, early writing, but at this point, like, there's just an natural intuition that even yourself doesn't like fully understand. There's always going to be a new, wave of opportunity to uncover, yeah. And there's no real prevention there. It's kind of more about, and I feel the same way too. I'm a Sagittarian type, so I kind of lose passion sometimes for things, so I feel like I'm jumping from one to another, but really it's just like a new hurdle. Like, it's now feels more like a bigger jump. Like I went over the first little molehill, and then there was actual hill, and then now there's like little mountains, but I can't make them all the way up the mountains on the first try. It's like, what route do I take is kind of a better perspective. So these spiritual gifts, and correct me if I'm wrong, like I said, like do you feel like they're also like natural to ourselves, and that we're the ones that kind of buried it below? Do you agree with that?
I'm sorry, what was the last question?
So like with a spiritual gift, so if you're hearing something, and if you're tapped into it, do you feel like the burden has become like unburying yourself out of it, or like finding the right mode or method of bringing it to the surface?
Well, for me, I mean, you mentioned you're Sagittarius, right? Is that what you mentioned?
Yeah.
Well, for me, I'm a Cancer, so I am burdened with I have to be creative, or else I feel like I'm doing nothing with my life. If I don't have that, that's when I get that emotional. Or let's say I am feeling emotional, because that's what Cancers are known to be, is the crabby ones. If I'm feeling anxiety, and I don't want to go to the gym right away or something, I just go and make music, and tend to get into a flow state where I completely forget about everything else that's going on in my life. So
perfect.
So basically, it just comes as a natural thing to me that just acts as a release.
Yeah, so that makes sense. So essentially, yeah, I think we're in agreement that it's kind of a natural thing that if we get out of our way, we might have to force ourselves into it, but it initiates like the separation from self a little bit,
Oh yeah.
So I agree. Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly with that. As we've been talking about the spiritual project or the spiritual gifts, obviously you have these two sides of you. They're not necessarily separate, right? But even though they're in the same vein, like music, your creativity space, what is Dreamlapse Dimensions' goal? Like with this new project? Let's get started there.
All right, well, Dreamlapse exists to utilize the nature of frequencies and sound to create healing ethereal realms, as well as develop manifestation techniques through frequency, meditations, and mindfulness concepts that help to shape healthy perceptions and positively construct healthy paradigms. And I put that on every video that was my goal from the beginning, and I put that in every single video description. But we also make frequencies for moon phases, spell work, like I mentioned, pain relief. Now I'm doing pets and weird things like that, astrology events, and I'm always just having fun with it now.
Yeah, that's a good place to be at too. And I feel the same way. That's why I'm kind of just opening up this space to do interviews. You know, I had my solfeggio meditations I did through the last year. So it took me a good 10 to 11 months of, you know, getting to the end of the year. And then when I was finally ready to maybe move into a new thing, that's when I put it down. But obviously, that's on YouTube. Is there any other place that you're doing Dreamlapse Dimensions, like online?
Yeah. So Dreamlapse is on every music platform there is. Spotify, Apple. I think you can buy it on iTunes. And if anybody buys iTunes anymore, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
They might. We're getting actually a lot bigger on Apple Music now, and it's blowing my mind. Because I mean, this project itself, granted, anybody can listen to this stuff and enjoy it. Metal, not so much. Metal, either you have to love it or you might hate it. So it seems to get a lot more play than Lapse does. So yeah, there's those, and we had talked about the tarot frequencies that I don't know if we went really in depth with that, but that's coming out, I believe on, I'd have to look it up, but it's coming out next month. I'd have to look up the exact date. I don't have it off the top of my head, but that's just the first 11 of the 22 Major Arcana cards that there are.
Nice. And so that's obviously the Fool, the Magician, and so on all the way through. And now the last one's up. I have access to that because it's up on your YouTube. But you're saying that'll be able to go up online, Apple and iTunes, Spotify.
The 3-minute, 33-second versions in succession with each other. That's why I like listening to it on Spotify more than I do like for hours. Unless you're using it for a specific purpose. That's why I make them as long as I do. Because some people like to sit there and meditate with it or sleep or take a nap or, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I found in your channel in the first place. I was just searching through frequencies and it popped in. And I was like, oh, the Fool card. And so when I'm looking for frequencies in specific hertz, I would just type in 396 hertz or 417 hertz, 432 hertz, whatever it was.
Gotcha.
And then obviously there's my search history also being really closely correlated on YouTube with tarot. Then I'm sure there was like some sort of thing, and then there you were. So, you know, which is interesting too. And I want to get into that 3-minute 33-second question real quick if we can.
Oh yeah.
So why is it that you're cutting all these videos to the 333?
Okay, so it represents the mind, body, and soul, and the aspects of being. So those are the things I intend to nurture and heal through this channel. So it's been just that primary number, mind, body, soul trinity.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think it's like a good representative, a good, you know, angel number, the 3s. You know, last year for me it was 11/11, and so we celebrated, you know, November 11th big, and it was like it just starts jumping out. But for some reason for me, I always run into my date of birth. So I'm a Sagittarius, December 6th, and it's just like out of nowhere, just every single place I can imagine. And sometimes it's not even just my birthday, like on a clock or something. It's seeing 6/12 like reversed. It's running into people, like that synchronicity of the universe. And so numbers, I agree completely that there's such a carryover on when we're in the right thing, they just seem to be popping out left and right.
Absolutely.
But also the follow-up with that Dreamlapse Dimensions and Lapse, like how dedicated are you these days to Lapse, or are you more dedicated, I guess, to Dreamlapse?
I'm writing right now what the problem is, because I'm the sole creator of all of the instrumentation of Lapse, it takes a little bit longer than, say, a band going into a studio and taking intervals of their own progress. But right now I'm creating, I'm trying to come out with enough for an album or something. But right now, the current one I'm working on, it has, to me, sounded like the best thing I've ever written. And I try to make sure with these ones, like there's a guitar solo in every one, there's a breakdown, because guitar solos are something that people don't really do as much anymore as, say, the 80s. It's just something that I've always had an affinity for. If there's ever a guitar solo in the room, I'm not leaving until it's over. If you talk over a guitar solo, to me, that's a party foul, things like that. So, and oh, crazy on that note is that I believe that the synchronicity of the universe showed me the correct person to be with. My lady, my fiance, her birthday is National Guitar Day.
Okay. That's
So to me, that was like, oh, this is definitely meant to be, you know. And she knows everything about me and loves me unconditionally, and just seems to be the least toxic person I've ever met in my life. And it's just like everything. I'm trying to surround myself with people that have, you know, healing and ascension in mind. And so that was great for that. But the lapse stuff now I believe is going to. I don't know if I would ever sign to a label. I don't know how that goes these days. I believe that those things tend to come with contracts that not the musicians are rarely happy with. Uh, so nowadays with Spotify, the way that they pay artists and iTunes and everything else, I think it's better to be your own label.
Yeah, I've been catching that vibe too from a lot of creators that I follow. You know, as long as they're putting out really consistent, there's an obvious passion behind it. I think the natural state of things takes over, right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had my experience too, even on YouTube, where if something really gets traction, it'll launch. You know, but that's
Right.
like that's really what I believe for you and your channel. Once you get through that final phase, you know, this part two of the
Yeah.
tarot alone, I think that could be like a really big thing for you. And then obviously
Yeah.
there's going to be some bleed over into all those other soundscapes too, but that's, you know, the culture of being in the studio, you having that spiritual gift, using your ear and just staying committed to it. You know, and which
Oh, yeah.
where we were talking about a couple weeks ago or last week when had our initial talk, it's like when it comes to loving what you do versus monetization on YouTube or wherever else, you
Yeah.
know, where do you is there a faculty of monetization that you don't appreciate as far as what's going on in the world today? Are you like even kind of maybe trying to avoid that, or is there a part of you that just knows that that's kind of a natural part of the world today?
I believe that if you're doing the correct thing and you intend to make that your living, and you believe that you can use money as not a root of evil, but a tool to help others and to live a life of freedom and be able to travel and see the universe, the God sources, beautiful creations, uh, to take you know, your partner out of her 9 to 5, things like that. If I can use it to the best person I could be, then I don't see there being an issue with it. But I do think that you have to do something for the correct reasons, or else. I'm not saying all rich people do anything. I mean, a lot of rich people I don't respect because they're getting one up on everybody else. You know, they're not using it as a tool to help others. They're doing the complete opposite. They're doing it as a tool to gratify themselves. Uh, but I do think that it's something that I do really plan for the future to be our sole job. We have some other businesses in the works that she has some creative flow with. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, if you are in the right mindset, God does, or God source, whatever you want to call it, the universe does want you to be free
Yeah.
and be able to live a life of where you're doing works of God, maybe, or whatever you want to call it, helping others. But it's not necessary to be working a 9 to 5 and making somebody else their dream money. So
Yeah, that's a good answer. I don't think there's a wrong answer. I think I've been naive in my own discovery of what YouTube is. Or even myself, when I first caught my first wave of real subscribers coming in, there was still a part of me in my back of my head that was always saying, I can't believe all these spiritual things. Everybody's always doing everything for monetization. All these tarot readers that are up like million subscribers and so forth. I wouldn't trust them. But there's been a weird shift that happens. Like when you actually catch even just a small wave of that, like I saw my own ego go on display a little bit. There's the truth of that,
Oh yeah.
And I was like, well, this is actually quite a blessing, because the timing in which it happened was one part of that, equation. And the second part, though, was I started slipping into that more spiritual mode, maybe. But when I started listening to things like, let's say, tarot readers, all of a sudden there are certain tarot readers right now that I listen to, and it's just so synced up. It's incredibly, and it's nice because the guy's on a really good positive tangent right now. So I feel like I'm riding a really positive wave. Maybe I'm just like less resistant to when I'm in that negative wave, to receiving the criticism. I think that's truth too. But as far as my perspective of creators and what social medias are today, not having my right of speech and blah 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 blah, I have this tendency to be very just negative, like talking down. Like I want to resist it all, because there's almost like a self-sabotage possibility. But as we've kind of come into the 2024, I was talking to Tara about this age of Aquarius is more about collaboration, which is also why I'm trying to do the interview thing, because you have something to offer the world that's going to educate me, and hopefully both, it goes both ways. And then just incorporating that to put it out. It doesn't mean that this video has to go to 1 million views or anything, but it means that that's the purpose, right? When I get in the flow of life, as opposed to maintaining all these thought processes, whether they're right or wrong, that's not the point. The point is like, what's the real intention, which is where I'm really trying to drive almost everything I do today is into a daily intention and just an overarching intention, which is why I respect what you've got going, especially with the tarot, Soundscape project. So I wish you all the best on that one, big time. And I also want to just follow up on that, like as a musician, obviously we've been talking about, do you think that you have just a greater understanding because of your music background of these frequencies as you're creating them?
I think that my production as a musician, my production knowledge itself has helped me in this pursuit. But it wasn't until like I said, I wanted to make sleep videos, I wanted to make rain videos, stuff like that. It wasn't until I had discovered certain things that I was like, oh wow, like there's something to this. There's something really healing about this.
Is there a specific thing there, like that you discovered that you can share?
About the healing frequencies?
Yeah.
Okay, so cymatics are crazy to me. Do you know what cymatics? You ever heard of cymatics?
Yeah, so Nigel Singford has a cymatics video, and it's all about those wave frequencies and watching the shapes of the patterns.
Those to me like blow my mind. That could be, creation itself is sound and light vibrating together, and that those patterns can be created through sound and things of that nature. And imagine what you can do to somebody's brainwaves as a positive effect if you're doing it correctly. So I had to study, how do you do this correctly? Because a lot of times when you look at these channels, how do you really test without putting it into your own stuff that these people are really not just telling you these things are doing what they're, you have to feel it for yourself, and you have to, and for me, like I make sure I'm doing everything to a scientific T with exactly what you said, with intention in mind. I read a book called The Power of Intention that really changed me. So like having that intention and putting that spiritual sauce into what it is you're trying to create. So like the solfeggio frequencies and things like that. I believe the guy discovered them by like trying to find a pattern within the Bible. Is that what it was?
I'm not
I can't.
familiar with that
Oh,
mode, but I recently put together a quick video with the Nigel Sanford Cymatics
yeah.
song track, but with Bruce Lee overlaid, and like there's this video, this fight sequence, because like
Oh, that's
underlaying with,
awesome.
I'll send it to you, but it's like Bruce Lee, um, you know, all of a sudden there's this frequency, and he's the only one in the middle of the room, and like he just moves around, and
Uh-huh.
the whole people that are all trying to track him all move around, and obviously the guy was like brilliant as far as choreography. You know, that's what made him such a big
Mhm.
movie star. But his fundamental understanding of martial arts, and you know what these things are, how you move, I move. You know, just like
Yeah.
literally that's what
Dance of
frequencies
life.
are. And so as you're talking about cymatics, what kind of captivated me more than just the frequencies or the shapes was how
Yeah.
obviously if this is real, a higher plane of existence is out there that knows this stuff. And that's where it started to
Mhm.
become scary for me, because I'm considering all this music we've been talking about, the FM radio dial, the
Mhm.
commercials, all these sub frequencies that are constantly one way radio or one way communication back to us. And so really like building not a full wall, but just like having boundaries as far as like me listening with a intentional
Yeah.
ear, that's very important in modern day, which I think too many people still get caught into that trap music or that club music, and like they're not even hearing the what it is anymore. Like what are they actually
Yeah.
listening to?
It could be a disharmony that could cause somebody health problems or like I said, like I play metal music, right?
Yeah.
And metal music gets a bad rap for exactly what you're speaking of, because it sounds angry and but a lot of it can be therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great metal album by a band called Northlane called Singularity that has all kinds of beautiful messages through it. But then there's also metal music that screams how bad their life is at you, and you're like bro, that's not the solution to your problems. Maybe this is venting, and this is cathartic art, perhaps, and maybe it's helping somebody else through their problems who are experiencing the same thing. But with that in mind, try to get into the solution of things is what I try to convey. So I do. That's just words, and who knows what some bands. A lot of producers have no knowledge of healing frequencies or the fact that the Chinese symbol for medicine is identical to pretty much just one difference to the symbol for music and for medicine are almost identical. The
Yeah.
only difference is the medicine has I think like herbs, like healing herb uh, thing at the top. So like yeah, who knows? And also I'm very skeptical of the music industry itself. If the music industry could be run by some kind of force that I don't want anything to do with, who knows what they're trying to subliminally put into us. Just like everything else in the world, it seems that health is on a decline. Things are food, uh, for instance, water, those kinds of things are just on a decline, and it's like why are those things on a decline? And that's why I try to eat healthy. I try to listen to healing frequencies every single day. I'm now meditating in the mornings, praying constantly throughout the day, just doing things that are going to lift my vibration and to try to and keep it at a high enough that nothing like that can bring me down to its level.
Absolutely. So on that note, too, I love all that. I love all this cymatics. I think would be really awesome to maybe segue into is when we're talking about quote vibrations, like
Yeah.
There's that overarching macro. It's just, I don't know, I feel like it might be beneficial to a lot of people to understand maybe more deeply what we're really talking about when we mean vibration. Obviously there's frequencies, and we're talking about a
Yeah.
low, Schumann resonance, which exists at like 7.83 hertz or something.
Yeah.
So this is like
Yeah.
a really small, really undercurrent roar. Like you can barely even see it. It's barely audible to the ear.
I don't even think it is audible.
Yeah,
I think anything under 20 hertz is not audible.
yeah,
At
I
least.
got a little Hertz app on my phone, and it was like
Uh-huh.
when I went down that low, I fell asleep really fast, but I could barely hear anything. And then obviously I've always used, like you said, going to sleep, meditating with these frequencies nightly. I was really using 174, 285, and 396 very regularly. These root and sub-root frequencies, and obviously there's proven, scientific research, I suppose. What if you want to? I'm skeptical of it all, but when I've worked with these frequencies, I do feel like my body regenerates a lot faster. I wake up a lot more refreshed when I'm in those frequencies. And just meditating to them alone at night, if I am more agitated, or awakened or whatever, it just puts me down. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
When it comes to vibration, like, how do you interpret that as far as consciousness is concerned, as far as humanity as a whole is concerned? Like, what do you feel like the best thing we can bring to the surface is, as far as creators and what you're putting out? Hope that's not
Okay.
too big of a question, but I know I go on tangents, so simplify if you need to.
No. Uh, so I have a lot of out there spiritual beliefs, but I do know that, and I'm not a religious person by any means, but there are some things within the Bible itself that you can interpret as a metaphor for things that do make sense. Like God said, "Let there be light." So He spoke things into existence, sound, light into existence, which creates this spectrum that we view, uh, and everything vibrating at those frequencies. Sometimes you can feel that from another person, and you can feel that from your pets, or like you're talking about how you stay grounded with a crystal in your pocket. You can literally take off your shoes and go touch a tree, and it will heal you. Or you can put your feet, yeah, just feet on the earth itself. I mean, we have shoes that are preventing us from doing that. But if you were to actually seek that out or go pet a cat, it does the same thing. A cat vibrating from purring is doing the same thing to you. So there is something magical that God did for us. God, source. I'm going to use the word God. You can use it however you'd like to. But there's something magical that was created for us that we can use to our benefit. That is to me personally the most beautiful thing on this planet, which is sound, and sound done differently in different ways. Um, so to me, that right there, and the fact that sacred geometry exists within, if you look at old school, let's say old school architecture, a lot of architecture is done in that sacred geometry, cymatic frequency, uh, and it's crazy to me because we don't do that anymore, right? We completely neglect any form of art and architecture. uh, it's mostly done to be efficient these days, and back then it was something to be awe-inspiring. And everything, I think, even the pyramids themselves are meant to be a creator of energy, and you can do that certainly with frequencies. And if that's true, then we most certainly have a loving creator.
Yeah. And how many pyramids are there?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, of Giza, Egypt. I'm talking about specifically.
Okay. Egypt? Oh man, you're asking me a question that I might not know the answer to. I'm on the understanding that there's three for Orion's belt.
Yeah.
and a sphinx that we don't know actually how old it is.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about like more, I think there's more pyramids that just keep going. I'm really not sure about that. I got to watch more Egypt documentaries.
It's all good.
But,
yeah, there's this weird axis. So if you were to go across the equator and then turn it by 30 degrees and then run it through Egypt, so where those are, then you have, it runs into these, the things in Peru, like from aerial view, they were like, they're drawings.
the
and
Nazca lines?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what, I can't remember what they're called. It's been a long time since I went down that rabbit hole. But then also there's some pyramids in China as well. And so like along this 30-degree paradigm to the equator, it literally runs into all those spiritual things. So there's just like so much, like if they were a frequency that were emitting something, or maybe if they still are, it created, you know, a specific, very distinct line of spiritual energy where the tribes of each area were kind of became some of the most prominent. You know, you have the Aztecs, the Egyptians, and the Chinese.
Yeah, and they're all built on these areas that are of energy, and they have like these energy sources. Like the Egypt was originally, there was water flowing,
right?
And you had
the Nile. The Nile was not a desert, right? The Nile wasn't a desert. It was the most flourishing area in the world. And so what's changed? Like, right? What?
Well, what's crazy to me is how all these civilizations theoretically never spoke to each other, and then you have them all creating the same thing that is a conductor of energy from back then. They also have things called like the Baghdad battery and things that they actually had. If you look into it, they actually had a form of electricity back then that they were able to create through like clay pots and things. But it is weird to me that there are so many different things out there from a distant past that we don't have any idea of how they had the knowledge to do that, and we can't even do it now.
Yeah, it makes me think so often, like, are we more intelligent now being so much more separated from Earth, or are we actually less intelligent? You know, just because we have so many more, you know, resources and skills and faculties and like at our fingertips, does that really make us more intelligent? Because I've been really coming back to this weird thought. This is not that weird, but like this relationship between the tree of life, right, that supposedly existed in Adam and Eve's era, right, as the story is told, versus the tree of knowledge. So all we think we know actually is what like opened the upward gate, right, of like seeking something beyond what we even know, versus like being satisfied with what we already have. Like that's sufficient for me to have a fully, you know, committed relationship with higher power, God, universe, like you're saying, God. So as now a human being, like separated because my perspective is different than yours, or that my experience is separate than yours. Instead of two people, we've got billions of people. Are we really more intelligent now today, or were they more intelligent when they're literally building the most fundamentally astounding structures known to man?
Right.
You know,
right.
As you were talking about architecture too, right? They only put so much intention into the ones that are going to be the tallest now, right? This idea of building tall. Oh man, well, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, as we've discovered.
Yeah.
So.
I do think that there is something to say about both arguments too, if we're getting smarter or dumber, because I mean, technically, I don't really have to have all the knowledge because I can Google the knowledge, and you know, whether it's correct or in my best interest, that is for whoever's perception to say. But back then, you didn't have any distractions to separate you from God.
Right.
You could just sit there and connect all day, and that's all you knew. You didn't have a cell phone. You didn't have laptops, you didn't have this and that and the other thing. So I do think that living back then had its benefits and its disadvantages, which they had no knowledge of those disadvantages.
Well, obviously, you know, we've gone through a lot of different things from spiritual gifts, what those look like, you know, your project specifically with Lapse and Dreamlapse Dimensions. and where those can be found. If you can reiterate those two, obviously you've got them on YouTube. You're going to be launching the bigger projects on Spotify and Apple Music. Am I getting that right?
Spotify, Apple Music. I think what else? What else is there these days? Deezer, Amazon Music. There's so many music platforms. Tidal.
But any of those
but yeah,
platforms,
so-
they can just type in Dreamlapse Dimensions, right, to find you.
Yes.
Okay.
Dreamlapse Dimensions on any of those, and you'll find a plethora of things. I even have a playlist. If you're on Spotify, there's a playlist called Essential Dreamlapse where you can just play everything we've made in a line, and it's not going to have any skips. And that's very relaxing for even my fiance. Like, she loves to listen to that stuff when she's had a hard day. She's trying to relax and doesn't want anything with words in it. That's what she'll do. So it definitely, I believe it to be enjoyable, no matter who you are or what you listen to. So
Cool. And so, like, I want to segue, final question here a little bit, I guess,
Sure.
before I ask you my main question, which I bring to anybody that's going to do an interview with me. But
yeah,
we've already kind of touched on it. But as far as creative, right? You said you're a water sign, which essentially, in the tarot or in even astrology, there's a correlation of, I guess, water energy is the more emotional energy. It's also represented in the sacral chakra, as I've come to understand, which is our it's our place of reproduction, but it's also that, like, it's a need, not a want, to, like, literally create something. So in today's culture, like on YouTube or social media, what does this creative energy mean to you as a Cancer or anything, like wherever you want to take that question?
that is, by the way, the sacral chakra thing was something I didn't ever think about, and that 333 hertz that I spoke of is something that also does resonate. It's said to resonate with the sacral chakra. So that means that number itself, I know it's like 396. Am I right on that?
Sacral chakra is technically 417, but
that's right.
But it is right there at the end of, so 396 to 417 is one of the smallest little increments between the root and the
Gotcha.
sacral chakra. Yeah.
All right. Well, this is information I definitely have to go further into. I haven't been doing this but a year. So what creating on, was it what, the internet?
Yeah, like on
Like
YouTube or social media, but what does it mean to you, like, to be doing this? Where's the inspiration? Like, if you can be succinct in that, like, where's it coming from for you?
Well, these days, it used to be, I'll admit this, when I was living in my ego and I had not done a lot of the spiritual work I had today, I would do things specifically on Instagram so I could take a picture of it and then shoot it to Instagram and be like, oh, look what I'm doing. I just climbed this huge hill that's looking over Los Angeles, and it's beautiful, and we're like on par with the clouds. Look at all this. And it wasn't necessarily for the experience, other than I didn't fully connect to it because I was more concerned about the content I would create as a result.
Makes
And
sense.
that's something I can admit, because today I try not to do that at all. I try not to make it about me. I try to keep my ego out of the equation when it comes to creating art. But I do have within me the know that you can't really do anything without social media these days. It's not like the days of Led Zeppelin. You have to be a part of, if you want to do anything that you love, you have to be a part of this game. Or, as much as I hate to play it, this is the game. The benefits of that to me are I can find inspiration on the internet because others are doing it. You connect with others that you wouldn't have connected with before, but there are its drawbacks as well. But to me, that's what it is. It's the and also these days, because of what I'm doing now, I was kind of speaking from a perspective of how to be in a band. But what I'm doing with Dreamlapse, because it's on the internet, I have the ability to help people I've never met. I can see in the cities that our stuff was played on my metrics And it's like it blows my mind that my stuff was played in Hong Kong, or it was Shazammed in London, and stuff like that is like, whoa, like there, this is helping people that I never thought possible. And so yeah, it's a beautiful thing to have that knowledge that what I'm doing is of my highest self, and it's of the greater good, I believe.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, I think it's a really powerful tool for us to be able to use the internet, you know, in the capacity that it's been created. But we have to also be extremely more mindful of what we're putting out there, you know, whether that is, you know, really beneficial to the next person versus selfish, like you were talking about, getting into that ego. I mean, I think we all do that to a certain extent with this modern day, like, introduction. Because if you've been around as long as I know you're not that much younger than I, but you know, Facebook wasn't out. We had MySpace before that. You know,
Oh yeah,
Instagram just
those were
came
good
on
old
it.
days.
So like everything else has been like a manipulation into shorter categories.
Mhm.
You know, YouTube now into shorts, which is really just imitating whatever TikTok and all these other things are.
They're all doing that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, creating something more substantial, right? Like, if I'm going to create something substantial, then I have to also to then be substantial,
Mm,
have some substance of knowledge,
absolutely.
which means like for me, and I agree again, like when I'm trying to create a meditation, I can't just like come into it and just flow on the frequency. I also have to kind of prepare myself for it. I have to bring greater intention to the songs, the music, however I'm going to kind of choreograph, if that's maybe the right word. I don't know. Not, I don't know, but if it's something that I've experienced, it's going to come across different than if I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants, just throwing things
Yes.
out there to make myself seem bigger and better. But it still sounds beautiful to walk out in LA above the clouds,
Oh yeah.
or rather
Oh
above the
yeah.
smog, as I recall, of
Oh
LA.
yes. Oh yeah, for sure. There are some beautiful moments I have pictures of, even walking at like 6 a.m. up to this hill. But yes, the smog was definitely one of the reasons I left.
Absolutely. And you're now in sunny Florida, so sunny California to
Mhm.
sunny Florida, correct?
Yeah, it's got the benefits of California without all of the things that are going really downhill with California, in my opinion.
Yeah. And
Yes.
and the water in the ocean's a lot warmer because it's going north as opposed to
Yeah,
coming
it's
south.
beautiful. I can literally go 15 minutes to several beaches, you know,
Yeah,
and see the
absolutely.
sunrise or the sunset from whatever beach I'm at, depending on where it's facing. Gulf of Mexico water, clear waters. Yeah, in California, it was like, I ain't getting in that ocean. To be honest, it was a lot of times I'm not getting in there. Yeah, other people did, but yeah,
Absolutely.
to me, it's just beautiful here.
Well, that's awesome, Justin. It's been so nice just kind of getting to know you. Obviously, it's a
Yeah.
blessing to be able to bring this perspective to other people. We're coming up on close to an hour. So I like last question really I have for everybody, which you've touched on, but not necessarily specifically about meditation, right? So,
Uh-huh.
as meditation is a daily practice for you, and not just maybe right now, but like what has been that meditation journey for you, and what do you feel like what you do is most meditative space for yourself as a musician,
Mhm.
as a creator, or is it like really when you're in your solitude to let you shoot from the hip on where that resonates for
Okay.
you?
So lately, my meditation is under the direction of one of my mentors. It is, wake up, pray, which I have this set prayer that I do every morning. I give my gratitude to the universe, and then I try to sit with myself for. Right now, it's at like maybe 10 to 15 minutes. I still have a long way to go on my meditation journey, but I do have a lot of plans for like breath work and different things that are able to bring you into different mindsets that using just your body and delving deep into your source, because that's like what transcendental meditation is getting closer to your source and the root of what you are, which is just complete love and positivity. and to bring you out of the state of turmoil. So like I have knowledge of these things to an extent, but right now it is basically I'm sitting there trying my best to remember the things that I absolutely didn't have, say, a year ago, that I have today that I'm grateful for, and to feel that gratitude within my soul, and to just continue through gratitude to move on to whatever God has planned for me next. That's in my best interest. Um, so I definitely plan. I'm definitely not as uh, advanced as you. I see you doing all that cool stuff. I can make music for meditations, and I do listen to music when I'm doing it. Uh, and I love that part about me is that I can make things that are real easy to just kind of space out to. Uh, but for me right now, it's still a work in progress. Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
Mm.
okay. You know, as far as I don't think that there's any perspective, and I don't necessarily even feel like I'm anywhere beyond where you are necessarily. It just, in my opinion, it always is going to come back to that intention, right? It
Mm.
only becomes deep enough for me if I really set that mode. I can't take it for granted, basically. You know, I've really
Yeah.
felt that that's been the hardest part about the meditative journey in so many ways. It's just not allowing myself to not take it serious, you know?
Mm.
There was a part of me last year where in group meditations, I kind of, there's sneaky little things that come in where I was showing up for meditation, but why, you know? Whether I was
Yeah.
like, even like willing to get out of my bed, come sit in a chair with like the right types of sound in here so I could really get into the frequency, or was I just there to be there, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think there's a wrong way to meditate. I think that there's a progression for sure. But finally getting
Yeah.
to these places, even if it takes 15 minutes to get to a 1 minute of complete separation from body.
Okay. You're talking like no mind meditation?
Yeah,
Okay. I
essentially.
know about that from reading The Power of Now. I
Yeah.
remember it mentioning that in there.
Yeah,
But
Eckhart has a lot to say as far as like, you know, becoming present. Like that's the ultimate destination. It's just like letting go of whatever's happened and guilt, shame, fear, and so forth versus, you know, even it's just as detrimental in a way to be so future aspects, you know, as far as
oh
like,
yeah, future tripping.
yeah, it's okay to have a goal, right? But a goal that's activated current, you know, in
Mm.
my intention of action. But as opposed to, I'm going to have this, I'm going to have that, because of those expectations, and they linger and then they prevent the fall. You know, just like building a
Mm.
skyscraper too tall, we were talking about. If I build out those future expectations too much and then find myself now, new purpose comes into my life, I'll resent the new purpose, you know?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's a horrible type of reality shift when we realize that the hard way, ego versus humility, you know?
Yeah.
It,
Speaking my language, for
yep.
sure.
But yeah, I so much
Absolutely.
appreciate all that you're doing out there. Obviously, I wish you all the best in your future endeavors going forth, and obviously, you're invited back anytime.
Awesome. You
Coming
as
to
well.
group meditations and so forth, I'm sure we'll keep in touch.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
any salutations or anybody else for those watching?
Love and light. I got this was an awesome experience. Thank you for our first interview. This was I'm very grateful to have had this. So
Absolutely. And again, thank you everybody for watching. Snuck Studios here. As it says here on mine, you know, Justin shared his verbiage. Mine here is like, I'm just here to share numbers of different concepts, practices, and invite all those interested in joining moving forward through 2024. We've got Dreamlapse I'm pulling up here. So Dreamlapse Dimensions, where you can find him. This logo is fascinating. So you can find
oh
all
yeah.
those frequencies here. I'm just going to showcase your YouTube channel real quick. And then as you can see, like this last one, the Wheel of Fortune tarot inspired frequency, as well as some, he did a spring equinox ritual frequency under 417 and 528, which is a sacral and solar plexus. So I haven't listened to that one yet. And there's just so much here on his channel. So I encourage you, anybody watching, to go look up Lapse for the metal, Dreamlapse for the sleep. And again, just so much appreciate you joining me today.
Appreciate you.
All right, we'll catch up with you soon.
Awesome.
Godspeed.
Godspeed.
Peace be with you.
Peace.